My name is Upendanais Barasa. I moved to Japan to teach English from Kenya. If you're interested, subscribe. You don't want to miss it. Come on, join the bandwagon. Hey guys, Upendanais again, coming to you live from Japan. And I think at this point, so many of us are excited about moving to Japan, and I've received information from people that they have actually handed in their applications and they're just waiting for feedback. Some have already gotten some feedback, and I'm really, really happy to hear that. Today's video is about the application process and essay writing. I think essay writing is very important because that is the time to actually sell yourself and give give a visual, give a general idea of the kind of person that you are. And this is where you express your enthusiasm and your ambition, your drive, and as to why you want to teach English in Japan. Unfortunately, this is something that you have to do during the application process, so you need to think about it even before you start applying, because you don't want to go through the whole process and then you're stuck because you didn't prepare for the essay writing part. So first and foremost, let's start with the application process, which I think we have talked about before, but I'll just paraphrase everything that we said. Remember when we did the requirements video and then we did the video about websites or where exactly you can apply for teaching jobs, I never mentioned anything to do with a CV or a cover letter, because when it comes to teaching English in Japan, your CV is like you fill in an application form. So in that form, things that you would write in your CV is what you write in the application form: your name, where you're from, what is your background in terms of education, your degree, and then what is your experience when it comes to work. And then after that, there's a space or a place to write an essay. I think, how many words? 2,500 words, 2,500 words, I think. And that is what we want to talk about today. I think I'll first start by giving my tips as to how to write the best essay. Remember, this is not a competition. You have to be as simple as possible. First, using simple English words and simple sentences and just giving a simple explanation as to why you want to teach English in Japan demonstrates how you're able to teach. Because if you're going to teach people who don't speak English as a first language and are just learning English for the first time, you need to be able to break down the language in a way they can understand. So you don't need to show your prowess in the English language and go big trying to leave an impression. You don't have to do that. So don't think so much. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'll just give pointers that I think important when it comes to writing your essay. In terms of length, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs is okay. You don't have to write a whole page, but you need a maximum of 2,500 words, but it doesn't mean it has to be exact. You could write less, but make sure your less is like heavy, you know. So the first thing, of course, you're going to talk about yourself and experience, because this is a CV. Like in the application, you've already filled in things to do with your experience and your background. You could just say, "Oh, I think I'm a very creative and driven person, and teaching English in Japan would be great for me." And then you can reference your experience in totality. You could say, "Given my experience with teaching, maybe, you know, teaching or and supervision or being a mentor, you think this is a strength that you could pass on or could reflect in teaching a language." You don't need to go on and say, "Oh, I've been a teacher in this school, I've taught for this many years." You could just paraphrase that. What did you learn, or what um, can you take from your experience in your work, in your field, and apply to teaching? Does that make sense? So if you're a teacher, what is it that you've learned or gained from your experience, like maybe lesson planning or classroom management, lead teaching, assessment, evaluation? How is your experience in this field of teaching relevant to you teaching English in Japan, and how can you apply it? Okay, I think the point is whole. So that should be maybe your first 1, 2, or 3 lines. So talk about your character and then how your experience or the experience that you've gained is going to be relevant in you teaching English in Japan. And then the next question you should be answering in your essay is why Japan? So why did you choose Japan to be specific? Why didn't you choose China? Why didn't you choose South Korea? So here, basically talk about what you admire about Japan as a nation and as a society. It could be respect, it could be how advanced of a society they are. What exactly do you want to gain from Japan when you eventually leave, after living and teaching English in Japan for some time and you go back home? What is the one thing that you're taking away from the society? That should be able to answer why Japan. And then next point, you can talk about the culture, the Japanese culture. It could be from their dressing, from their entertainment industry, could be the technology in Japan. So basically, you think that their culture is beautiful. Talk about why you think Japanese culture is unique and attractive and beautiful, and that is why you want to move to Japan. Okay. Next is language. You could say maybe you're interested in learning Japanese, even if you never learn, but when you move to Japan, you'd say this would be a great opportunity to learn a new language and share. As you absorb yourself into the culture, you also get an opportunity to share your culture, which in turn makes the world a better place, you know. Next, praise Japan. Just praise Japan. Just praise it. Just exaggerate and praise Japan. Like, Japan is such a beautiful country, and you can't wait to live in Japan because of one or two things. What impact do they have in the world? What have they contributed to the world that makes it a great nation? So do your research about Japan. Do your research about Japan. We talk about your love for creating impact or your purpose. So what do you think you know the children are going to gain from you moving to Japan and teaching English? What is your purpose? Is your purpose to make the world a better place? How? If people get to, if Japanese children get to interact with maybe people from a different nation, people from a different culture, and they learn things from a different perspective, maybe that's your purpose, for people to, for them to see a different perspective as you learn. Don't just make it about yourself. As much as you're sharing your culture and you and your what makes you different, show that you're also willing to learn from them as they learn from you. And then I think that also falls in the line of cultural exchange. Remember that an ALT is not only an assistant language teacher, but also a cultural ambassador. So talk about ways you're going to share your culture. Is it through music, integrating like aspects of maybe African music to your classes? Because there's a lot of music when it comes to teaching English. You could talk about your language. When you're learning about different parts of the world, you could share, oh, how do you say hello in Swahili? How do you say hello in German? I don't know, how do you say hello in this and this and this? As you exchange, share ideas. You could compare what is similar in Japan and what's similar in your country, what's different in Japan and what's different in your country. So such things are part of cultural exchange. And then last is service. You just want to serve, teaching is service. You just want to serve. I think you'd be good to go. Imagine it's not that hard. You say, talk about yourself and experience. How does your experience in teaching or leadership or as a supervisor, as a doctor, how is that going to apply in teaching? Talk about why Japan. Why do you want to move to Japan? Is it the technology? Is it the people? Is it the food? Is it the weather? Culture. Talk about, their way of living, their respect, clothing like the kimonos, entertainment, industry like anime. You could talk about language, English, Japanese. You want to learn Japanese as you teach English. They can teach you Japanese. For me, I know Japanese words and Swahili sometimes kind of sound similar. So I talked about that. Oh, I think it's really interesting that Japanese and Swahili sometimes kind of sound the same, and that's why you're interested in wanting to learn maybe Japanese. Praise Japan, like we said. You love to create an impact. What kind of impact? What's your purpose? Cultural exchange. And then lastly, service. I think that marks the end of essay writing. So you could just sit down and write at least 2 sentences or 3 sentences about these points, and then match that into one whole paragraph or 2 paragraphs. And that's it. They're not trying to, I don't know, they're not hunting for gold. They just want to see your enthusiasm into teaching and why you want to move to Japan. Basically, just sell yourself. And that's all. See you again next week, same place, same time. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, leave a comment.